All right, fantastic. Let's get started. Just as a reminder, we are recording the session for people that can't be here tonight, or if you are here tonight and you want to go back and watch things over, you can do that. So we've got a 30-minute presentation by Dick Hawley. And then 30-minute open conversation. We do want to keep it bounded on the topic at hand. We're not going to talk about speechcraft or which is a great topic, by the way. I mean, we're going to talk about the effect of COVID and how we react in this environment. So we're really honored to have Dick Hawley as our presenter tonight. He's been a 40-year Toastmaster, charter member of the Century Toastmasters in Stevens Point. He was our District 35 governor back in 1989, and then in 1995 he was elected to a 2-year term as international director. So he served on the board of directors for Toastmasters. So tonight he's going to talk about how you make lemons out of lemonade. So so we had COVID, kind of a bad situation for most people, but let's see what we can do with it. So interested to hear what you have to say, Dick.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Yeah, it's like Keith mentioned, I've been in Toastmasters for 42 years, and this is by far the most difficult years for Toastmasters International in my entire career involved with it. The 1-2 punch of transitioning to pathways, which created some havoc within districts, especially for more tenured members, and then COVID hit. And for an organization that helps people overcoming the fear of speaking in front of people, that can be a death sentence. And realistically, we didn't die, but we were injured. I just took some statistics here. Since 1921, total number of clubs in Toastmasters International has dropped by 2,500 clubs, and we lost 2,500 clubs, but we lost more than that because we chartered some during that time. So that's a good indication. Plus, the membership since 2020, the total membership in Toastmasters International is down 100,000 members. And that's not counting all the new members. So the total number of members is down 100,000. So the struggles we're experiencing in District 35 is not unique to this district. The district should be proud that we've come through this. The light is now, we've hit the downturn, and now we're moving to bigger and better things. And it's come from strong leadership in our district to get us through this. But the district has suffered as well. In 2018, we were at 130 clubs. Right now we're at 90, and 7 or 8 are suspended, and some of those will come back. But we're going to be in the 80s for total number of clubs compared to 130 clubs we had 5 years ago. So clubs are struggling, and the leaders, it's hard to keep. The Toastmaster leaders are the officers are the motivators and the leaders of the club, but who motivates the leaders? Who keeps them going? And it can be frustrating and burnout because of the obstacles that are thrown in front of us all the time. And I just, not to put a downer on other things, but I just saw that this last week that Toastmasters International has decided to raise the dues from $45 to $60 starting in October. And it's still an absolutely great value. I don't see people leaving Toastmasters because of that. extra $15, but I can see some people saying, you know, I belong to 4 clubs, so I'll maybe belong to 3 or 2. So it's another obstacle or something that's been put in front of us. They were good enough to say that if you pay your dues before August 1st, you can still get the $45 rate rather than the 60. So the good news, a lot of people are going to pay their dues early this year, and we won't have the struggle in October trying to get our clubs up to 8 members. So that's the downside. But we need to recognize that's the situation we're in. And, you know, it talks about Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And it's easy to be a leader when things are going good and everything's positive, but true leadership skills are learned when times are hard, and these are hard times. So those of us that are leaders are becoming better leaders because we're finding ways to be successful in an area where it's not easy to be successful. There are a lot of single-digit clubs, and I give them credit. Single digits or 12 and under that qualify for coaches, and I give them credit for being where they feel bad where they feel bad where they are, but they're successful. Their club is still a club, and so many clubs have been lost. So even a single-digit club or a 12 and under club is successful because they're still here. There have been some clubs that saw this obstacle, saw the opportunities that it might present when we went to virtual because of COVID, and now many moving to hybrid. And there's a couple of people that are attending that I'd like to get some of the ideas of how they went from a struggling club to a club that is doing well. And maybe I'd start with Jeff Good from the Church Mutual Club in Merrill. It's an open club, even though it meets at Church Mutual. Jeff, could you share, where the club was when you joined? I forget how many years you've been involved, and where it is now, and steps the club did to be successful.
Sure. Dick, thank you so much for inviting me. So I've been in the club probably close to 5 years, 4 to 5 years, and within that range. And what was great about it was when I came on board, I was kind of learning like a lot of new members do as you attend meetings. You attend as a visitor, and I was just kind of taking it all in. And for me, I just had heard about Toastmasters for years. And in fact, my father was in Toastmasters. He said it was called the Gavel Club at that time. So this was quite a few years ago, but he said it played a key role in how it got him from within his career to be able to overcome a fear of public speaking. And that helped him to grow within his role because, of course, as a leader, you need to be comfortable in front of groups and speaking and things like that. So one of the great surprises for me was when I got into the club, just getting a chance to meet the folks that were already in the club that were coworkers, as well as we had some coaches at the time. Came to find this out later that we were one of those clubs that just had a few people, and Dick Hawley was one of those people that was coaching us. I know Karen spent some time as a club member and coaching us. Karen Pleggy, who's also on the call, and Deborah. So we had a number of coaches, and then came to understand later that not only are they coaches, but some are members of the club because they want you to continue to keep your club active and be able to meet the metrics where you can continue to be a club. So that was a great experience. And Dick was somebody that I knew early on in my career at Century Insurance. So for me, it was just another indicator of things coming full circle and just getting the opportunity to kind of come back to something that I knew was foundational and going to help me in my career and also possibly provide some leadership opportunities. So as time went on, we definitely had a club that I don't know if we ever talked about it, but excuse me, we wanted it to be a club that would be welcoming and encouraging and, be motivational for people to attend and essentially build those networks that we talk about and friendships. And that's kind of the club that's evolved. And I think that the reason we've been successful throughout COVID is because we built that or started that face to face. But as people came on board, we just sort of welcomed them in as just a member of the club and somebody that could become part of this network of friends that are helping each other improve and get better along the way. So I know during COVID, our company did a lot with virtual, like a lot of companies had to. But one of the keys for us was having that face to face, even in a virtual mode. Like we're here, and I recognize a lot of faces now from different events that I've been in, been to as a Toastmaster, and it's a welcoming group. That's a key to it, is having the cameras on and having everybody together. So I think that for me, and I think others in the club, it was during COVID, just the time to get together with friends and to help each other succeed. And we had that agenda that we would follow, and that kind of gave us some guideline. But yet at the same time, we're looking for ways to continue to connect because I think a lot of people were feeling isolation. And that's one other great thing about Toastmasters is we're consistent. And I think at the beginning of the presentation, Keith was talking about starting on time. Those people do like to have some structure with starting and ending on time, having an agenda, knowing that the second and fourth Thursday of the month, there will be a meeting that I can go to. We very rarely reschedule or postpone, and people need some of that consistency in their life. And we've continued to see the growth. For us, as we are sponsored by Church Mutual, our primary group is Church Mutual employees, but there are other people that have come into the club at times, and now we have, I think, just one member outside of Church Mutual, but we're definitely an open club, and we have had people come in, so that's been great. But then what I've noticed is, based on the hybrid schedule that some of the employees have, they typically in any given meeting will have maybe half of the group in a face-to-face conference room, and the other half, and sometimes even outnumbering the face-to-face group in the classroom, is the virtual group. And we have sort of a balance, it seems like, between virtual, and then some folks have to attend virtually because they work in other parts of the country. They don't work in Merrill or central Wisconsin. So they've typically from day one, those individuals have been remote. And I tell you, each and every one of those individuals, they just have that they bring something unique to the club, their personality. A number of people have a knowledge or some experience hearing about Toastmasters like I had. So when they hear about it, they are very excited. And we also, as a club, uh, tied to Church Mutual, we very much talk about how this can help us with our own personal development. Because, like any performance management, or not management, but performance plan that you're on, they always want to come up with some ideas. So, what are some of your personal goals? And those map very nicely with pathways and the 11 different categories. A lot of them are leadership related, but some are project management, some are other areas about motivation, and they can kind of get their own path going. And once the light bulb clicks of how those projects tie into other speeches they can give, it really works well together, the whole program. And that's where we're at right now. We have a lot of members, but we have a lot of people also that are just starting out their paths. And that's okay, because you want to meet them at their need. But we also want to coach the people that are ready. So we're really focusing more on mentorship this year, and excited to get that program going so they can ask the kind of questions that maybe they don't feel comfortable coming to the whole club with. But I think the main thing, I guess if I had to point to one thing, it would be just that friendship, that network, and the consistency. That's what's helped us thrive during these challenging times. Back to you, Dick.
Jeff, I was going to ask you, when Deborah, Karen, and I joined the club, so we get it up to 8, so we wouldn't lose Church Mutual. That was 8 members. What's your total membership now, approximately? Do you know?
18.
Okay. Well, congratulations to you. And it's a good point about pathways. Those of us that are old school, manual, personally, I went in kicking and screaming when Pathways started. It's like this, I want a book in front of me, but as I got involved and I saw the benefits, And those new members don't know the old ways. They don't talk about, well, are you going to give a manual speech? Well, it's not a manual speech anymore. And they see how individualized Pathways is compared to the old book where everybody was doing the same 10 objectives. This is more personalized. What are you looking for in Toastmasters? And which is the best path to help you achieve those goals? So point well taken. I see Karen is Karen, are you on board?
Hello, Dick.
Hi.
Everybody.
Hi, Karen's been involved with the Eclectic Image Club out of Eau Claire. And maybe you could share how hybrid meetings or virtual meetings change that club, and how you live in Marshfield, and how you happen to be starting in a club in Eau Claire, if you could share that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Karen Pileggi, and the COVID pandemic saved my club. A bit of explanation is in order here. I was an incoming division director for the Northern Division when the pandemic hit. I was an area director previous to that, so like any good incoming division director, I took some time to get to know my clubs, and while some of them were in good shape, there was one particularly that I figured was pretty much on life support, and that was Eclectic Image out of River Falls. It was mostly some gray-haired older folks. Some of them had been in Toastmasters quite a while, some not so much, but they mostly treated it as a coffee klatch. Nobody really had the sense that they needed to give a speech once in a while. I wasn't entirely sure what to do with them as I came on board as division director, but I soon had bigger problems. We all remember the lockdowns, and my biggest concern right then was the mental health of some of these older folks, widows, widowers, people who were very much shut in. So I joined the club intending to be a paper member, just to keep it a going concern for a little bit longer. Yes, I know, kick the can down the road. But with the lockdowns, we suddenly realized that we had to do something totally different, period. That was when a number of us were starting to explore Zoom, and we were fortunate that the one person in Eclectic Image who was younger than 60, other than me, was interested in figuring out how to use cameras, cell phones, what have you, to make a hybrid meeting. Because of the lockdown rule, people met in Carol Prince's garage. Technically, they weren't in a public place, and they were outdoors, and we kind of figured out things like masks and what people felt comfortable with. But in the summer, that worked okay. And Lucas grabbed his cell phone and figured out if you aim it like this, you can see the audience. And if you get somebody else's cell phone and put it like that, you can see the speaker. I got a Zoom Pro account because I felt as division director, it's kind of my role to help everybody as much as I can. So, here I thought I was going to do something generous for the division, and now I'm using it for my family every week, and I'm teaching English online and all these other things. So amazingly, it was worth it. Although, like Dick, I came online kicking and screaming and had to have a member of one of my other Toastmasters clubs teach me how to use Zoom. She was in IT. She had previously worked from home. I actually had to have her teach me how to do this. And Lucas had to more or less force hybrid meetings down the throats of the senior members of Eclectic Image at River Falls. But we made it. And as we got to know each other, that was our chance, in a sense, to have me as part of the coffee klatch, but also as me as division director to encourage more speeches and better evaluations. Then things got interesting. Lucas was comfortable on social media, so he began to advertise our club on social media. And somebody from Ukraine picked up on this, and it was at a time in her time zone that was convenient, and she came to practice her English. I was a little worried at first how somebody she was in her early 30s, would get along with these older folks, and me and Lucas kind of in the middle there. But she's one of those people who can get along with anybody. So she came, And then she invited friends. So now Eclectic Image had 4 canyons at the time, and reaching out into a couple of other countries. And when you've got a whole bunch of new people, you got to teach them, right? Teach them what Pathways is like, assign a mentor. Well, we can't have somebody sit down next to a person in Ukraine to explain the meeting to them. So I stayed on after every meeting for about a half an hour and explained meeting rules, explained what Toastmasters is, explained how to give a speech. So we had teaching time literally after every single meeting. This got nicknamed the after party, kind of a nod to Oscars and award shows. So we'll stay on for the after party. And after the education part, after people actually knew what they were doing enough that it wasn't education every time, then we stayed on to chat. It started out with, what's that writing on your t-shirt say? To, oh, I give blood too. And then somebody's saying, well, where do you give blood? Oh, well, at the Red Cross. Do you have a Red Cross in your city? And then it turned into a social time. So we became friends, and that wasn't too difficult because 15 years, give or take, between their age and mine. The interesting thing, though, is that all these gray-haired folks over in River Falls, some of whom have never been outside the United States, became engaged too. These are our Ukrainians. These are our new members. And it took a little bit of work to get everybody to gel as a club. But to anybody listening, I want to encourage you, don't be discouraged. Take the time to put the work in. Know it's not going to go really smoothly every time. Know it's going to take some time, but it's worth it. You all know what happened on February 22nd of last year. It was horrendous for us because after a couple years of staying after the meeting to chat, an Eclectic Image meets every single Saturday. We'll cancel a meeting occasionally for holidays in various people's countries, but for the most part, we meet every Saturday. So we've chatted every Saturday. And I finally got onto Facebook so I could communicate with some of them. And then with the war, we already had those channels of communication open. That turned out to be a lifesaver in more ways than I can count, and I'm still counting them. I got somebody new in the network who really needed to be a part of the network just this morning. So we're still helping. But importantly, we were still there. We became a club. So despite the war, we've got all these Ukrainians coming in, and then somebody knew somebody who connected to somebody from Kenya, and he mentioned it to a few other Kenyans. So then we had a big Kenyan contingent. So let's review. We've got people in person in the River Falls Public Library. I'm in central Wisconsin. That was the nucleus. Keith Hardy is just over the river in Minnesota. Then we added Ukraine, and then we added Kenya. So that's 3 time zones. And yes, I'm seeing some surprise there. Just a warning, daylight savings time is a nightmare. The US changes its clock about 2 weeks different than Europe, and Kenya doesn't change at all. So it takes a little bit of work, and attendance does fall off because people can't figure out which time, is it. So if it's 10:30 in your time zone, that means 9 o'clock in my time zone, which means, is it 4:30 or 3:30? And yeah, it gets a lot of fun. Make sure you got one person in charge of communicating stuff because it gets complicated. Again, I think it's worth it. But we took the time to do that. And then, interesting fact, Gulnar was actually able to be in the United States for a short time. She flew into Minneapolis, came to visit me. Travis Mariska, one of our Eclectic Image Toastmasters, wasn't able to make it to the meeting the following day. So he met us on the way to my house from the airport. We met right in the middle in Plum City for dinner. Gulnar came to my house, hung out with my parents for a couple days, and then we actually went to River Falls and were in person with the in-person folks. That was the first time I'd met most of them in person. Until then, they were just little faces on the screen. But Mel Mortimer arranged first a picnic in the park, and then it was raining. So then he got the community room with the library, and he got his son and his son's friends to man the grill. And it was this whole great big party. That would never have happened if we hadn't been forced online by COVID and then reached out on social media. If anybody ever is wondering what to do, my club is struggling, I can't think of where to reach out, consider social media. And also take a look at the time zones. Where else in the whole world can you find members? Once you're online, you are not limited by geography anymore. As Jeff said, there's people in different parts of the country. We got people in different parts of the world, and it works. Eclectic Image had 22 members last year, and we were named the District Directors Club of the Year. Not bad for a bunch of gray-haired folks having a coffee clutch and a couple of younger people wondering what on earth to do with them. So that is the Eclectic Image story, and that was the silver lining in the clouds of the pandemic for us.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. A great story, and the Phoenix Award from ashes to success. So thank you for your commitment to the Toastmasters and the success you had with that club. And it just opens up. We have to look for opportunities. When opportunities aren't there, you have to find them. They don't come to you. You have to search them out. Okay, I'm going to call on one other person, Lori Baker with the Waukesha Club. And I know that club's very successful. And I know in that club, there's a lot of tenured members. And I'd like to hear from Lori how you transition to teaching old dog new tricks. How do you transition people from the old Toastmasters to the Pathways Project? Lori?
Well, thank you, Dick, for the opportunity. And hello, everybody. Great to see you all. I know most of you, but it was great to hear from Jeffrey and Karen. And I ditto what they said. They had awesome comments. Let me think about this now. I've been with the club 25 years. This is my 25th anniversary, and I probably am one of the oldest. Jim Coley and I are pretty much the same age, right around 64, 63. And I hear you with respect to wanting a manual to hold on to when I give speeches, but I've worked around it and it's working out just fine. But in our club, we've had a lot of district leaders. So it's not one person, one older person trying to explain pathways and explain Toastmasters in general. So that it's been helpful. We've got a division director, Rhonda, division director, Joe, Jim Coley is our president this year. So we've got a really strong leadership club. And so we don't throw it on them and say, here it is, take it or leave it. We show them, we give speeches ourselves. We show them how to do it. This is how you evaluate. So we just take a kind way to introduce pathways to all of our members. When we talked about COVID, we were always at around 20 members, and we dropped because of COVID, say 4 or 5 members. And to us, that's like, what's happening? We couldn't believe it. So, but we stuck with it. We kept in touch with the members that were in our club and said, I'm not doing COVID. I mean, I'm not doing Zoom. We always kept in touch with them. And so what we've done is we've invited them back, and we got some of them back as members. Great people. And then And in our last meeting, we just inducted 4 brand new members into the club. So we're back at 20. So, I mean, it's really been great. So again, it's, yeah, we're teaching, we're old dogs teaching youngers tricks and pathways, but we are, you know, we just keep it a really good, welcoming club. We're a community club, so everybody knows. And our club just turned 70 years old in December. And we had 45 people come and celebrate with us and had a great in-person party. And we invited, oh my God, so many of our old members or the ones that aren't members anymore. And many of them came, and we're still in touch with them saying, come on back, just come back to a meeting. And we got a couple of them back. So again, if you have a club with a strong leadership, you can really guide the new members and the current members that are reluctant about pathways into give it a try. And like we always say, there's no free speeches. We can find a place somewhere in the pathway program to put that speech in so your club gets credit. You know, I'm in 2 other clubs too, and I want to help all of my clubs get credit. So again, continue to give those speeches, be a somebody that the guest and your other members look up to, and they'll want to do the same thing too.
Sure.
So those are a few comments, Dick.
Great story, Lori. It is a club that's for 70 years. We see the turnover in clubs to keep it going for 70 years. That's a lot of leaders over the years that said this is something important. We aren't going to let it die. We're going to lead it to success, and it's been very successful. I see Tony Cooper online. I know a couple years back, your club was, should we merge with another club? How are we going to keep this club going? Would you care to share some thoughts, Tony?
Dick, first, thank you for helping us with the speechcraft that we had. It reinforced our commitment to one another. It helped us introduce Toastmasters to one new member who has since become a club president. It also spurred us to try things going forward. Now, some of the things we've tried didn't work, but we learned a lot doing it. We tried having a couple of our members go to a local Rotary chapter and talk with the people at the Rotary chapter about making the club part of the Rotary meeting. Didn't work out, but it was an idea that was worth exploring. We also had one member, me, become part of English as a second language as a course that was offered in Lima, Peru. And we got a couple people from Lima, Peru attending our club meetings. And one keeps coming back, and there's a possibility that a couple will come back and become permanent members. We also have several members who belong to more than one club, and we are constantly finding ways to work together to help each other's clubs. On top of that, Dick, you'll remember that we had one person named Dick McKenzie from Modesto, California. He didn't mention it when you were there, but he was a member of the Pharaohs gang that was mentioned in America Graffiti.
Oh.
He said he would make us an honorary Pharaohs Club or Pharaohs Toastmasters. We could use that for advertising purposes. So where we've been for the last 6 months to the year is we find ourselves back at 8 members, then we get people are going to join, and we go up to 14, 15 members. We're going to stay in the game. We're going to keep trying, because every time we start adding new members and we start doing new things, that creates a spur to becoming a better club. We've been challenged by the fact that we're a noon club, and a lot of people have a very limited amount of time at noon. That means we can't always count on people to be there constantly, but we have people who remain in the club and try to make the club better. We've had several outside events that have solidified our commitment to one another. We had a picnic in a park south of La Crosse that at first no one could find. And when we did, it was raining, but it was still an interesting get together. We've also had opportunities, or we're trying to work on an opportunity to have a radio announcer attend one of our meetings during the noon and see if we can't generate interest that way. And on top of that, we're looking at joint meetings with other clubs. And we've looked at meetings with clubs in the Twin Cities, the club I belong to in Randallstown, Maryland, and seeing if we can't have a joint meeting with them, or having a joint meeting with a club that's located in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's a club that's connected with the Association of Healthcare Executives. Why? Because that was part of a career I had in the past. But another was that I know someone there and who wants to have a challenge based on how well do each of us understand each other's accents. Huh. Certain that if we have a meeting like that, just the challenge will bring people together. But again, thank you. And we also for helping us, guiding us through our first Speechcraft as a club for more than 6 years or 7 years. And it also, we wanted to thank you for the fact that it helped ignite in the community enthusiasm. So I think we're back on track. We're constantly trying. And what we have identified as our club banner or our club motto is never give up, never quit, and always think of the end where you go through the banner to win.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. It's a club that could have easily have gone the way of thousands of other clubs, but took some leadership in your club to keep it going. Is there anyone else that would like to share something that they did in their club, the obstacles they faced, and how they interesting ways that they solved the problem to keep their club going?
I see Yuri's got his hand raised. Maybe he has something to offer, or it might be a question. We'll see.
More a question. Lori, what you said about former members, it sounds like you had a bunch of them attend 70th anniversary. What can please share with us ways in which clearly when you connected with the former members, they were receptive to you wanting to connect with them, and they came back, and however many of them end up joining, that's maybe a separate kind of a challenge. In the meantime, what worked for you? For one of my clubs, for example, and this is the club that is struggling somewhat. We try to reach out to former members, and it's not like we're trying blindly, but I don't know any of them because around at the time I joined this club, and it's difficult for me to reach out to a stranger that I have never met, and by now they have moved on with their lives 3 times over. What worked for your club, Waukesha, to get them to at least come to the 70th anniversary event?
Well, Yuri, thank you so much for giving me this question. We always entered guests into our Waukesha Toastmasters Club website. We entered guests, and then if they were a member, we moved them to a non-member. And you can go into we have a free Toast host account. It's, like many of us have those free Toast hosts. And you can go in and send to an email to all of the guests, one email, or you can go in and then if you go, oh no, she's moved, I'm not going to send it to her. You can just deselect somebody so it doesn't go to then everybody. But we just see, it was easy for me because with 25 years, I remember all of them. But unlike what you said, you don't know them. So you would need to word the email very carefully. Oh, I'm Yuri, and I'm so many years in my club, and we would love to have you come back. And our club, if you're talking about landmark or Tosa Medical, who I've been there a number of times. Great club, great opportunities there at Tosa. But so just word the email that you would love them to come back and just try our club again. But when we had that big party, I knew the ones that just needed a little push, a little nudge. And they weren't all Waukesha past members. We got like Gail Russ from Love of Laughter. Waukesha and Love of Laughter have about 5 members that are in both clubs. So we're like, oh yeah, invite them. And they came. There was a Love of Laughter table at our Waukesha Toastmasters party. So just again, word the email, reach out. Ed Thielen has been a member of that club a long time. He'd remember all those non-members to come back. You might want to reference Ed Thielen in your email to them and just again say, this is our next meeting. If you're doing hybrid, let them know you can meet in person at Tosa Medical or via Zoom. So just word it nicely and just keep in touch. I'm going to keep emailing this. I have this huge group of people I invite. I keep inviting them back. I'm going to keep sending them to until they say, Lori, please stop sending it to me. And you won't believe some of them still say, well, I'm here because Lori was really persistent in inviting me back. So that's what I would do.
Thanks, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other questions for any of our speakers or share some successes in their own club?
I've got a question for Lori. So at Waukesha, what's the breakdown between in-person and remote participation? Typical meeting.
Yep, we're hybrid, and I'm getting darker in my screen because I'm sitting in a Comfort Inn breakfast group. Otherwise, I'd be in the room with Rod and my dog. So I'm fine. But Keith, okay. We renewed our own Zoom meeting. We're going to continue hybrid for at least another year. And Tom Carlson is one of our members. He's 90 years old. He can't drive anymore. So he's absolutely, going to be on Zoom. And I was on my Waukesha Club meeting from Arizona, the 2 meetings we had in March. So typically we have probably 90% of them are in person at Citizens Bank in Waukesha. We got a great facility. The Division F contest is going to be where the Waukesha Toastmaster Club meets. So come to the Division F. Joe Dembleski would love to see you there. And then say it again.
Must be Division B.
Oh, B. I'm sorry, B. Yep, I'm sorry. Yeah, B. So, but yeah, Tom Carlson, and then we had Roderick Smith from Sydney, Australia, was a member for 2 years at the Waukesha Club, and even Alicia Curtis from Melbourne, Australia. She still comes and visits us because she got to know us by Zoom, or I'm sorry, because of COVID. So again, most of us meet in person, but like when we had those 2 snowstorms, they seem to always be on a Thursday night. And so we jumped on Zoom and we had almost everybody there because we were able to. So again, mostly in person, but we're going to keep Zoom. We're going to keep it going.
Yeah, Zoom, we talked about that, how it saved our clubs, but it's a struggle for some clubs because of the facilities they have. Do you have the equipment to, because in Toastmasters, we want to put on a professional meeting. And if you go to a hybrid meeting, you maybe don't have the equipment to make it look as professional as you would hope. So it's a struggle for some clubs. Fortunately, many of our clubs have members of their club who at their businesses, their employer might have a room that they could use. It used to be the problem with clubs is where do you meet where you don't have to pay for a meal. Now the problem is where can you meet where you can have good enough facilities, equipment to put on a hybrid successful meeting. It's a struggle for some clubs.
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for clubs that have moved back to primarily in person. but still have a hybrid content to keep that sharp, right?
Yep.
You whatever you don't do often, you don't do well, right? So
You want to make sure those people feel like they're part of the meeting, not a second step member, you know. It's you hear people, you're online, but you hear people talking all over, you don't know who it is, and it's just a struggle sometimes to make your meeting something guests will see as a professional group. Any other comments or
I
questions
have a
from?
question for Jeff. I have a question for Jeff. Jeff, I believe you mentioned that your club, you do have a few members that come from community, is that right?
Yes, right now just one, but Eric, I can't remember Eric's last name, Dick, but he was, I think, in the Eau Claire area. He was a guest for a year. What an
Yeah.
interesting person too. He
Yeah,
just brought
yeah.
so much to the club. But yeah, it's typically Church Mutual right now, but again, open to the community. I don't know if that answered your question or if you had more to say.
My question is, it's, well, that was my kind of a lead up to my actual question. My question then is, knowing that your club is mostly can be called a corporate club, what is in place right now that if several members, the core members, end up going elsewhere because of career changes or whatever it may be, what do you have in place to kind of not replace, they'll come from the Church Mutual, and maybe what effort has the club made to include a couple of members from community to become part of the core, that if the core balance between the main corporate and some of the community members?
You know, that's a great question, Yuri. I don't know that we've focused on that as much because again, Church Mutual, one great thing about a corporate club is they pay the fees. So that's a real perk, as well as we are able to use the intranet, which is our SharePoint site. And they kind of said we can't be putting things out there too often, but once a quarter, we'll highlight some of the members and their accomplishments within the club. And the most recent one that we did was around review time. So as a company, everybody's doing their individual goals, and we positioned it as this is the answer. Toastmasters, your personal development. Are you interested in leadership? Are you interested in being a better public speaker or being impromptu speaking skills within your meetings? And out of those kind of communications, we typically will get 2 to 3, we'll get a number of guests, but then 2 to 3 that end up becoming full-time members. So it's kind of nice. We've been as a corporate club, but you bring up an interesting question, Yuri, and I'm going to take that back to our officers to start even this week in our meeting and just talk about how else can we cultivate in the community, because that hasn't been as much of a focus area, but it's a good point that I think you need a balance with your core team of having some community folks as well.
Yeah, corporate clubs are easiest ones to start, but they're also the easiest ones to lose their charter when things go bad with the company. So that's what happened with Century. We started as a corporate club, but then we hit the skids in, I think, 1989, and we changed our charter to an open club and welcomed people in the community. So that was a big plus. And our president next year works for the post office, and you know, a third of our members are non-Century members, and that's because we run Speechcraft every year, and it's a community-wide program. So we get people from Delta Dental and other companies that join the Speechcraft and then end up joining our club.
That's a great reminder. So thank you both.
Looks like Todd's got his hand up. I'm interested to hear his perspective because I know he's joined District 35 kind of as a result of COVID. So I'd love to hear what he's got to say.
Well, my question was generally, what happened to the Phoenix Award? I mean, I used to love seeing those badges on, say, old time banners, but now with the new banner, I don't see any anywhere anymore. So I was just wondering if anybody had any idea what happened to the Phoenix Award.
Yeah, it's, I'm not sure if, I know we have two of those on our banner. And I don't know whether Toastmasters Internet, I don't think it's Jason has some information on it.
So we as a district offer a Phoenix Award,
Okay.
But there's no longer one offered by Toastmasters.
Okay,
That's part of our incentive program from the district.
okay. And Jason, what are the qualifications there? They have to
Yes,
8 to 20 or 8 to
Uh,
distinguished? Or?
any club beginning the year with 12 or fewer members and building to membership charter strength 20 members or greater can receive the District 35 Phoenix Award. You receive
okay.
a banner ribbon for your banner.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good to know. So our club, we reached out to a lot of the people who were isolated or we hadn't seen in a while during COVID and said, hey, because we did the back marketing on the Free Toast Host list that we had created over the years. And we had, just before COVID, we had our 60th anniversary. So we used that same list to reach out to a whole bunch of members who may still be alive to come back to the 60th anniversary. So that same list, we shot out an email to once COVID hit, because we knew people had, moved away and now had a harder time getting anywhere. So we ended up getting a couple members coming back, but I would say at the time that we brought them back to the club, and it's the same thing I've seen on a lot of clubs, because I've been to a lot of clubs. Most clubs that try to take the old in-person agenda and move it into the online world weren't maximizing the time in the online world. So there was a large waste of time, and there was a large not high enough ROI on the investment of time. So they didn't want to stick around because it was just another boring meeting that they added to the end of their day. So I feel, having visited over now close to 800 different clubs around the world, the ones that are surviving are the ones that took and kept some of the parts and changed the other parts to make it more fun and interesting, such as flex start and stop, such as the roles and how the chat is used, how we involve the dropping of things and saving of things, and also games like using Wheel of Names to choose the table topic people, using Kadoodle to do the guest comments or questions of the day, how to make interaction with technology with a lot of the new AI that's working with TI. So those clubs that use the new technology have been able to, I think, attract the newer generation. And with the increase in dues, I think we're going to lose a lot more clubs. Just for your knowledge, there's another version of Toastmasters out in the world. It's already got 500 clubs worldwide. It's only started in 2016, and it's picking up speed all over the place because people don't want to pay the dues to Toastmasters anymore.
Yeah, thanks for those thoughts. You bring up a good point about, I think the people that attend meetings, hybrid meetings that are virtual, want a more concise, efficient meeting, where the people in person want it extends. You get topic masters that'll give a 5-minute speech before they call on the respondents, or a general evaluator will give a 10-minute speech instead of just a brief overview. I think virtual people are looking for, one of the things we learned in Toastmasters is to run efficient meetings. And in the social aspect, it becomes more social, but in a hybrid meeting, you need to run efficient meetings and move along in a professional manner. And your comment about dues, I'm hoping that doesn't make a difference in people. $60 a year or $120 a year for the amount of knowledge gained and the amount of lives that can be changed. I think I'm hoping people won't leave the organization because of $15, but the times are hard, and there may be people that's a consideration. I'll turn it back over to Keith for wrap up.
All right, we probably have time for one quick question or comment before we leave. Yuri?
Oh, yes, Karen, this question is for you, but kind of, the answer is, the topic of it is, it applies to all of us. I know you mentioned that you, in a way, gave the club a favor initially by joining as the division director. I'm just curious, over the past, how many years you've been in Eclectic Image, when you mentioned roles like area director or division director, do you get a lot of interest, or kind of in what ways, what worked for your club to nudge people towards trying out to be an area director?
I was interested in the go-getters, the people who wanted to learn more, the people who were consistent in coming to meetings, in giving speeches, in making progress through pathways, but also the good communicators. The more I've come to operate in Toastmasters, the more I've noticed how important it is to make announcements, to make sure that everybody hears it, to send out those reminder emails, to get the next meeting scheduled ahead of time. I'm looking for the people who are aware of those little things. So I would say those are the first people that I'm looking for as area directors. And while it's always nice to have some experience on a team, the division director should have some experience. It's nice to have somebody who's been around for a while, knows a lot of the answers. But I'm always looking for somebody who will say yes when I offer a little role, like, would you be a ballot counter at the contest? Afterwards, I'll ask, so what was it like? Did you like it? Well, then I'll put you on my list of people to ask to be a judge. And if you say yes, then I'll put you on my list of people to ask for the next thing. And most of the time in most of my clubs, I've got a couple people on the list at any given time who are saying yes to something. I'm always thinking about, who can I grow as leaders? Who can I teach who's going to become the next teacher? So anybody who's interested and who's doing something and who will say yes, they're on my list.
I've always said that if a person says they're ready to be an area director, it's a year too late. Get them before they're ready. That's the learning experience that can happen when you're an area director.
Absolutely.
Keith?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dick. Love the way you've framed up the topic and brought in a few different perspectives. It's a interesting and lively dialogue tonight. Yuri, Todd, are you guys hosting an after party if anyone's interested? Or?
I'm probably not. I have a kind of commitment coming up, but for the future, for everyone here, the idea is to extend this kind of club support into maybe another say 30 minutes if anyone's interested. Maybe next time I might have the ability, but in case you want to stay on and talk about it, then Todd has a Zoom account he offered to share, and if it's a way to extend and answer any more questions, and it's something hopefully will be available. We'll make it available. Hopefully, club support seminars will continue, and when they do, we'll offer it up every time. That in case you want to stay around.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Thanks everyone. Hope to see you at the next one, and certainly at the conference in a few weeks.
Everyone have a good night.
All right,
everyone.
Bye-bye.